This time I'd like to introduce Roben Sellers. He's the Executive Director of the Economic Development Corporation of El Dorado County.
Well, thank you. It seems only fair to note that none of those things prepared me for what I do now. Probably more ways than one. There's also a comment I'd like to make in reference to Ray's presentations earlier. I think the awards went the wrong direction. I really think that Ray should probably get an award for getting $100 out of the ball. I think that probably I hope all of you have received 2 pieces of paper that comprise my entire speech, and you have them with you. There'll be a couple of questions, and then we'll adjourn. I want to talk about the Economic Development Corporation. I want to talk about it because I think that right now, as Clay indicated, El Dorado County is facing some pretty significant challenges. By some estimates, we're seeing a flattening of our residential development. I think, how many people in the room were here in 1982? Okay. If we see too much flattening right now, I'm afraid our economy is going to need some pretty substantial boost to its economic base. Our Economic Development Corporation is structured just to do that. On the handout, because I can't remember these things, I'm probably a little bit glad that I can, but on your handout you'll see that we've listed the goals of the corporation. And there's some nice verbiage there's some nice italic print, but essentially it boils down to we want to create jobs because that's where the true economic strength in a community comes from. We want to diversify the tax base because we're looking at long-term solutions to economic prosperity. And finally, we want to maintain and improve the quality of life and the business opportunities that we all see today in El Dorado County. And I think those are goals that are, while certainly high and lofty goals, they're very achievable in El Dorado County. In many senses of the word, we have a blank slate for us to work with here. We have a lot of momentum. We have a good, strong leadership. And if we don't have the pieces to do it, I don't think anyone in the world has it. I'm excited to be a part of this. What I want to do in today's presentation is just to walk through what the Economic Development Corporation is, how we're structured, how we came about. I want to brag a little bit about what we've accomplished as we wrap up our first fiscal year. Our new year starts July 1 of 1990, and I think as you look on that handout, you'll see that we were able to really do some pretty significant things during the first 8 months of the Economic Development Corporation and the programs of the Chamber of Commerce that immediately preceded that. As we face the economic challenges for El Dorado County, I think we need to use a buzzword that Ben Holtz coined the other day. He calls it economic awareness, and I've never heard it phrased more clearly. El Dorado County is in the midst of a lot of growth. There's a lot of political dynamics that are occurring, and the one thing that is absolutely critical in my mind to the success of all of our efforts is that the community as a whole understands what an economy is, how it works, how the various pieces fall together, the interrelationships between industrial, land use planning, residential, infrastructure, all of those different pieces of the puzzle that go together to make a nice, healthy, aesthetically pleasing community stated in our goals. The Economic Development Corporation is approaching the economic awareness issue, if you will, by a series of programs. First and foremost, in the reports that you see, or the accomplishments that you see reported on this handout, these activities are primarily, these companies that you see listed here, are the results of what we call our business attraction program. Essentially, it's a marketing effort. It's an attempt to put El Dorado County in front of corporate site decision makers as a prospective location for their business investments. And that's done a couple of different ways. It's done through direct marketing to companies that meet certain profiles. And I'll tell you that our our industrial attraction efforts are predicated upon certain basic concepts. One, there's an assumption that El Dorado County has a quality of life that is unmatched by the majority of the United States, certainly unobtainable in many parts of California nowadays. And we are directly marketing to companies that have a desire, a need for a quality of life environment for their business location. The main reason that they need it these days is that there's a very strong shortage of skilled employees. As technology moves into the manufacturing workplace, you see increasing demand for people with what I call critical thinking skills. These are your engineers, these are your computer programmers, your analysts. The educational systems over the last 20, 30 years haven't produced sufficient numbers of these skilled employees to keep pace with the demand. Now we find that corporations, in order to grow, require certain things in addition to their typical compensation package. No longer just put dollars on the table and recruit engineers. When Hewlett-Packard came to Placer County in 1980, we were looking at a scenario at that time that was pretty fresh and exciting. They selected the South Placer area because it was an area where they had shown through their research they could attract their electronic engineers. The same thing is still happening 10 years later in El Dorado County. I think it's our time in the sun. Our quality of life is an important consideration. It's something that as you look at our marketing materials, you look at the video, you look at the magazine that's published by the Chamber of Commerce, you look at our community profile. If you don't find the words quality of life in here 50 times, then I made a mistake. It's our theme, and it works. It works as demonstrated by the types of companies that you see here. Some of these people, Sierra Prototype, are represented here today. I think all of them would unequivocally state that they're happy to be in El Dorado County because not only does it make good business sense, but it also makes them happy, and their employees happy to be here. So our business attraction program, through direct mail, through networks, folks that are here now, probably each of you know a company that I should be in contact next week with to help them move them, encourage them at least. That program is kind of the foundation, if you will, of our job creation and tax diversification efforts. But there's a couple of other things that we're going to be doing July 1. I probably need to preface the rest of my remarks by saying that the backbone of my speech today is a report that will be given week after next to my executive board and the following week to the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce. So this is somewhat of a preview, and it could change. Knowing my board, there's certainly going to be a lot of discussion about it. The second program that I hope to start July 1 is what we call the Business Expansion Program. In May, we submitted a grant from the Economic Development Corporation to the California Department of Commerce for $45,000 to implement a major program to work with the existing business community in El Dorado County. Statistically, over 70% of all new jobs that are created in a community come from within the existing business base. We're going to approach that market beginning July 1. We're going to do it with a lot of contact. We're going to do a series of surveys to measure, document the business climate of El Dorado County. We're going to identify opportunities for supplier and vendor linkages within El Dorado County. We're going to put together a salary survey for the first time and release it for public use so that we can truly have some numbers to work with. We'll be identifying a series of what we call red flag issues, those elements that may be in the community system or infrastructure that are keeping businesses from really moving into a higher growth mode, from expanding, from adding the new jobs and the new business investment that's needed. Now, I'm in a preview going to say that while I haven't received formal written announcement, I have been told that we've been given that grant for $44,000. That's pretty significant given the competition. So that's a program that we should be announcing through the media and through our business plan over the next couple of weeks. Also, somewhat of a preview, in October, let's go back a little bit. One of the things that the Economic Development Corporation has done over the past year, and the Chamber before that, is to work within the grant sources in the state of California, from community development block grants to rural renaissance programs, etc. As shown on that handout, we pulled in nearly $500,000 in grant funds that are recycled back into the community. I guess in its basic sense of the word, that's economic development because we're bringing that money in from outside of the community. One of the programs, one of the grants that we were successful in was a loan that went to a company called Violent Heating Systems. And it was a package that I think fairly typifies the operations of the Economic Development Corporation. In order to pull together this $300,000 grant to Violent Heating Systems, which is actually a loan, we had to coordinate with the Small Business Administration, with the Greater Sacramento Certified Development Corporation, with the Wells Fargo Bank, Sac Commercial Bank, Western Sierra, Board of Supervisors, 17 different state agencies, and a lot of different people whose names I can't even remember at this point in time. But it pulled all these pieces together, and a company that wanted to relocate into El Dorado County from the Bay Area, they wanted to expand their operations, introduce 2 new product lines, was able to not only pull together their land, their building financing, but also working equipment, working capital and equipment funds to make the deal gel. The Board of Supervisors submitted the application on behalf of Violent, turned around, made a loan to them of, contingent on the state grant. Those funds will be repaid back to El Dorado County. And under the terms of the grant agreement, beginning in October when the funds are repaid, there'll be a revolving loan fund program that'll be used to, among other things, finance the new project of the EDC, which is called the Business Formation Program. That'll be working on the third spoke, or the third leg of the stool, if you will, which is business formation, where we talked about 70% of all the jobs in the community coming from the existing business community, as much as 80% of all the new jobs that'll be created over the next 10 years in the United States overall are going to come from new business startups. Some of those are expansions. There's subsidiaries that are spinning off out of existing companies. Right now, there's no programs that are comprehensively addressing the needs of entrepreneurs in terms of business planning, counseling services, loan packaging, etc. And in October, the revolving loan fund for El Dorado County will begin to address those needs. Those are 3 of the main program areas of the Economic Development Corporation right now. There's a 4th one that we call member services, and if all of you aren't familiar with what the member services from the EDC are, then I'd be more than happy to talk with you individually, or Beverly Kerr, our member service coordinator, administrative assistant, would be happy to. If you have a brochure, well, I'm not going to too blatantly solicit memberships while I'm standing up here. It saves a little quid pro quo. Please get in contact. I'd like to talk to you about what we have to offer and how you can participate with the Economic Development Corporation. The 5th program of the EDC is kind of generally headed up by a category title of Business Support Program. And this is where our Board of Directors is particularly active. Through their committee structure, we're working in the areas of education. Vicki Barber is our new chair for the Education Committee. We have the Water Committee that Duval is heading up for us. We have the business expansion programs we just talked about. We have transportation. We have a number of the infrastructure issues. Essentially all of the elements of a community system that add together to create an appropriate business climate. So from the Board of Directors, we see the leadership that addresses the specific issues that affect or encourage our major operating visions and programs: business attraction, expansion, and formation. Now, as far as administrative structure, we've got 2 staff. We're hoping to add 1 more person as a receptionist bookkeeper as a result of this grant. We're located upstairs in the Chamber of Commerce, County Chamber of Commerce building, in space that's donated by the County Chamber. We have telephones. We have a fax number. If you can't reach us, I don't know why. I hope that we'll have an opportunity to talk with most of you over the next 6 months and really discuss some of the things that we're looking at here. How we do what we do really comes down to our membership base. Our budget is 40%, probably now 35% from public agencies, cities, counties, Office of Education, fire departments, etc. 35% from membership, private revenues, and the balance comes from grants. That's sort of how we're structured. That's how we do. It's what we do. And all the things that I left out, I'd be happy to address in questions.
Robin, as you appear throughout not only California but throughout the West, representing El Dorado County, is there a single issue that you have to confront and overcome when you talk to businesses and attempting to interest them in locating here?
Yep. In my verbiage, I call it business certainty. Before business comes in, mainly we can, through our visual materials, present El Dorado County as a very desirable place to live. We can, through written materials, give them the facts, housing costs, employee base, etc. The uncertainty arises, and if there is a deal killer that occurs, it's usually a lack of certainty on what is going to take place in a community. Quite often we're talking about businesses that are investing $100 million in plant infrastructure. They want to know what land use policies are going to be in place. They want to know what the build-out of the community is going to be like. And I think as much as anything, they're coming to El Dorado County because they feel comfortable with the vision. That's a term that I use in virtually every business. They're comfortable with the vision, the type of community that we're all here striving to.
Thank you.
Chief.
You see the water issue and people's awareness, or these people that you're dealing with, as being a deal killer?
Yes. We see it specifically in two ways. One, we see a concentration of activity, development activity, in those areas where there's firm allocation of water. Right now, that's El Dorado Hills Business Park within El Dorado County. We're also seeing deals lost to other communities outside of El Dorado, or we're seeing some deals shifted up into the Georgetown area where they don't have the EID emergency water shortage. So yes, we do see it impacting. Probably the media coverage from the regional press has been a little misleading for most of the businesses. An example, I guess, a good one is Milgard Manufacturing, an announcement we made in May. Milgard will be, they'll be building a 150,000 square foot facility. They were in the final days of escrow when the water emergency shortage declaration was announced, and they almost flew out. We set up a meeting with them, discussed the reasons, the rationale, the various approaches that were being worked on to resolve water. And at the end of that discussion, which included elected representatives and the EID manager, we were able to go ahead and close the deal with full certainty on their part. What it's hurting us on, Gene, is that bad news makes good news, in certain markets. And I think that the water shortage, while it's very real, has been announced in a negative manner. The various efforts and scenarios that are being researched are not being accurately presented through the media. That's a challenge that I put out.
Robin, when you're referring to the vision of El Dorado County, when we moved our company up here from the Bay Area 10 years ago, one of the things that attracted us was the vision of the county regarding a higher educational institution here, a permanent campus for the junior college and expansion thereof. That's been a major disappointment to us over the last 10 years. We're not at all sure what's going to happen in the future. It's certainly a factor in what we continue to do here. I'm wondering if that's a subject of interest or concern to other organizations within this area.
It certainly is. In fact, over the last couple of months, we've been in discussions. I'm going to not directly answer your question because I'm going to leave it for our education committee under a new chair to bring out their work program over the next probably 60 days. Personally, the accessibility of higher ed facilities is absolute critical importance to our overall industrial development, business development efforts. Personally, I'm convinced that we do have a good market for a higher ed facility. I'm a little skeptical about public institutions, but I think we've got an opportunity to come back to the private base and build some real strong educational centers, shall we say. Any other questions? I thank you. And I'll look forward to